Great stuff. Thanks, Sue. So just to explain a bit, if I may, as an introduction, first of all, this is a statutory meeting that has to take place in every parish council every year. It's not a meeting of the parish council, though. So it's very much, the intention is to allow community groups, organisations, whoever's in the parish to come along and to talk to each other, to tell each other what's happening, to raise issues and discuss things. Obviously, the parish council is part of that, but it's very much, the intention is to get others as well. And this is in fact, it's the 16th year we've had one of these meetings. We should have had one last year, but because of the COVID outbreak, everything got sort of cancelled around the March, April time. And so we didn't we then switched to meeting virtually, but the annual parish meeting itself didn't take place. So it's an unusual sort of meeting, but it's really great to see some of our, the school's been here tonight, and obviously farther away from the Catholic Church as well, and residents, which is great. I think can I just say before we and hopefully you've all seen the agenda. So we're going to go around. I think Martin is bravely said he's going to speak first after me, and then we're going to go down the running order. And then I've got a few slides hopefully to show towards the back end of the session, and then we're going to have Peter Blakeman from the Planning Committee, and then we can have a bit of an open conversation if that's okay. But I'd like to just say it's a bit of a slightly unusual situation, obviously, as we are meeting virtually. But this is the first official meeting that the parish council has been involved with since the death of the Duke of Edinburgh, and I think it is worth us noting his passing. He was a stalwart companion for the Queen for so many years, and the fact he wasn't allowed to retire until he was the age of 95 is something, if you think about it, most of us think about retiring at the age of 60 or thereabouts. For him to carry on and serving the way he did until 95, on top of his wartime service, is quite remarkable. And so I think I just want to, if you like, formally, I do want to pay tribute to him, and it is worth, I think, thinking about the Queen in her current, condition. It cannot be easy for her. She's still very much in the public gaze. She is still serving the country, and I'm not going to ask for a minute's silence, but I do genuinely feel for her and their family. So I just want to put that really, I guess, on record, if I may. So I'm going to move straight on from that, if I can, and just pass over to Martin Bonner, head teacher of St Thomas More School. So Martin, please, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Now, if it works, I'm going to, I was going to share my screen, but it says that it's been disabled.
Oh,
so
right. Right, so maybe I have to go on to you. Let me go on to more. I should be able to allow to, let me, good question. I would have thought I could just click on you and it would let you.
So have you clicked on Martin's name and does it say make host?
Yes, do I have to do that? Make co-host,
If you
okay.
make Martin the host, then he can
Yes,
share.
I'm always wary of this because we don't know normally who's here. Off you go, Martin.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
There we go.
Okay, can you all see my PowerPoint? Okay. So I attended the 2019 meeting, and a lot's happened since then. So I thought I would just sort of whiz through a few sort of bits and pieces, just to sort of update you with what we've been up to. So first of all, in 2019, we had some exam results, which seems quite an unusual event now. At the time, it was kind of quite routine. And I suspect that lots of people in the area see our children coming and going from school and maybe don't get the greatest impression of them in terms of who and what they are as young people. But I think if you can see there on the screen, this is the sort of local sort of town secondary schools. And as you can see, for English and maths, St Thomas More actually achieves very, very well, and we're just 1% away from being the highest achieving school in the town. Grade 5 is similar to what used to be C or above, but it's slightly higher because 4 is now the grade that everyone's looking for. So as you can see, St Thomas More got a very good set of results on that measure. And then attainment 8, don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with data the whole evening. This is where you take their 8 best GCSEs and you average it out and you get a score. And once again, as you can see, compared to the other schools in Bedford, apart from Bedford Free School, which was 0.2 ahead of us, we got the best results in Bedford on that measure as well. And this one's very important, which is people who leave school, do they stay in education or do they get a job? And as you can see, again, the young people who go to school in Brickhill in St Thomas More, 95% of them, the highest proportion of anywhere in Bedford, move on to something else in education or go on to employment. So as I say, sometimes when our children come and go from school, if that's all the residents see of them, I do worry that they wouldn't necessarily show themselves in their greatest light, but actually they're a very good set of students who do very well. And then obviously not after the 2019 results, we got back to school as normal, and then we all went into the lockdown. This was a picture of Ben Pearson, one of the people who works for the local authority, taking a load of PPE away that the school donated to people who worked in the sort of care sector right at the beginning of the lockdown. I don't know if you remember back then, a big sort of shout out went out, and our science department had lots of disposable gloves and goggles and all sorts of stuff that so Ben came along one day and took it all away to distribute to other areas in the town that needed them. And then of course we had another set of results, and it wasn't quite such a plain sailing last year. You all remember the big exams debacle and how that all went sort of wrong, but actually it worked out quite well for our students. All of our students managed to get to their university places. And even before it got changed on the first set of the results with the algorithm, because they were based on historical data, the children at St Thomas More actually did quite well because the historical data was good. So their results weren't actually that badly affected at all. So although the country was in uproar, we were quietly keeping our heads down because our children had fared quite well and they were all off to university. There was a few exceptions, but anyway, it all worked out in the end. So, and the important thing was that the children could go to the universities they wanted. So because it's been a little bit doom and gloom this year, I thought I'd share a few good news stories as well from the school. So just recently, this was Tom Grennan, who was at #1 in the pop charts a few weeks ago. You might still be, I'm not that up to date with them, but Tom's a former student of the school, and it was actually the day after he went to #1 in the charts. He popped into school during the last lockdown, and it was really nice. He did a session, that's him in our school hall, and he did a Zoom lesson with some of our music GCSE students, and so you can see they're all at home, and he was there leading them in a masterclass. And I don't think it's very often that children get to be taught a music lesson by the person who's currently #1 in the pop chart. So I think you can see from the smiles on their faces they were very pleased. And just sitting next to Tom in that top corner, that's Angela Costello, who was Tom's teacher when he was at school, and she's the teacher of these children as well. So that was a nice link there. So that was a lovely thing to happen. And there, as he was walking through the school, he found a picture of himself. So that was good as well. So he could remind himself of his school days. We've had some other success as well in sporting fields. This was Bright, who was with us just a couple of years ago, and he went off to play for Bayern Munich and actually has represented them in the Champions League this season. So there he is in his school uniform, and there he is in his Bayern Munich kit. So well done to him. Another success story from the local area. Following on in football, this is Bunya. He was in our Year 11 last year. He now plays for Roma. We'll be playing Manchester United in a couple of weeks' time. I don't know if Bunya will get into the team. He's only 16, so he's maybe a bit young, but another boy that we're very proud of. He was a lovely young lad as well. He was part of the year group who didn't get their results last year, but again, Bunya did well and is continuing to do well. I did say to him before he left that if he makes it to the big time, I expect him to come back and do an assembly with the students. So I'll hopefully be able to keep him to that promise. And just recently, a former student of ours, Edom, was the director of what was apparently the best ever episode of Hollyoaks, which was good. So another success story from the school, obviously this time again from the arts, like Tom. So I'm not a Hollyoaks fan myself, so I can't claim to have watched this episode. But apparently there's been talk that this should be shown in school because it was all to do with unconscious bias and racism. So I'll maybe look into that. But again, it was nice to. It's lovely for the children who still go to the school to see people who were part of the community go on and do well and succeed in the world. And then here's a snapshot of our during the lockdown time. We were very happy to be the recipients of a donation of some laptops. So this was a local company, SDC, and they donated 32 laptops to the school, and that's the High Sheriff Susan who arranged it. So I thought it was only fair to give them a bit of a shout out for supporting the school so nicely during the lockdown period. And you may have heard about the testing that schools had to do. So this is one of our gyms, which was converted into a testing centre. So you can see there the bays there, and that gentleman there is actually the CEO of our trust. So we roped him in to do a bit of testing, but we also had a shout out for volunteers, and we were very lucky. There was lots of people who kindly volunteered their time to work in the testing centre during that few weeks where we had to test all of our students as they returned to school. And there is another shot of that in action. But it's not all been to do with COVID. We were able to do a few things. So we have an annual fun run where the children raise money for the St Vincent de Paul Society, and the sixth forms all get dressed up, and as you can see there, they are having a little bit of fun and back to normal. So the children are back into school now and back in classrooms and getting on with what they should be doing, which is learning in lessons. So that image at the end there just captures that we're all sort of back to where we were. So how do I stop sharing? There we are, stop sharing. So that's it from me, really. I just thought I'd give you a quick sort of whistle-stop tour to some of the highlights of, or maybe not so much highlights, but some of the main events that happened since the last time I spoke to you at the 2019 meeting. So that's it from me, really, unless anyone has any questions.
How are the staff coping?
Yeah, we've had our ups and downs. There was before Christmas when things were on the rise, we actually had a day where we had 26 teachers absent, either actually with COVID or because, you know, somebody in their household or something like that, and were, you know, having to stay at home. So that was quite a red letter day. As you can imagine, if a school normally has sort of 60 odd teachers, you take 26 of them out of the picture, it makes quite an interesting time. So yeah, there was a few weeks there in the sort of November to December stretch where I think the whole country then was on the rise very significantly, and we had quite a number of students who had COVID, and it was quite a sort of difficult period, but we managed to get through it. I mean, there have been some real tragic moments. We've had a few children who've lost parents during the pandemic, and grandparents, and you know, there's been some sort of very sad times as well. But I think most people now are feeling quite optimistic. We're back in school, and of course we're very busy again now. We've got to get these teacher assessed grades ready for June the 18th is the day we have to upload them. So staff and students are very busy collecting the evidence for those, and so it's all go at the moment. We're all hands to the pump, but I think generally speaking morale's quite good. I think the teachers and the children are glad to be back in and glad to be feeling a bit normal again after such an unusual period of time.
Yeah, well, thanks, Martin. It's obviously been a very challenging year, I'm sure, for you all. But well done for rising to the occasion. So Now I'd like to move on to Brickhill Primary School. Debbie. Oh, hang on. Sorry, apologies. We haven't got Debbie. We've got Dan, haven't we?
I'm Dan. I'm Debbie's teacher.
Yes, sorry, Dan.
Right. That's okay. I've just had a flashback from Martin from when I was at St Thomas More in sixth form, dressed as Fred Flintstone for the fun run. I completely forgot about that. That was a good 18 years ago. It's lovely to hear it's still going though. What a fantastic thing to do. This is my first ever parish council meeting, so I'm very excited. And we've had quite an eventful day at our school today. I don't know if anyone saw BBC Look East this evening, but I was actually on the intro bit. I was teaching. What the nation doesn't know is I told my children to all put their hands up to make me look better, but it was only on camera for a split second. But that was exciting. That was to do with the Harper Trust are supporting the COVID catch-up by offering second-year trainee teachers to come in for some paid work to work with students, and whilst also catching up on some key placement time that they missed out during the pandemic. So that was really exciting. We found out yesterday evening about BBC Look East coming. It was all it felt exciting. And then we also, we had some pupils in Year 6 interview some professors and scientists from the European Space Agency today, all about the solar orbiter satellite that they sent to space. So I'm really glad we're having this parish council meeting today, not yesterday, because I wouldn't have been able to introduce it as well as I could have done there. I'm right in thinking the Waveney Green, the play equipment on there, that's because of the parish council, isn't it?
Yeah.
Excellent. I just want to say, on behalf of my children more than anyone, thank you for the upgrades you've got on Waveney Green. It's when we were having to keep them off the parks when it was closed, it was difficult, but they've absolutely loved the new additions, and obviously the downtime when the children weren't in the parks was a perfect time to do it, but they really, really enjoy the new equipment. So thank you very much from our children, for that. It's fantastic. And so Debbie, she told me I have to give you a rundown of the last couple of years, which is fortunate because it coincides with how long I've been at Brickhill. And like Martin's hinted, the last year in particular has been incredibly challenging. It's about this time last year when we were kind of still in that kind of limbo of what's actually happening. And it's incredible to think, even from April to January, how schools support for their children and staff has changed. And in the first lockdown, it was very much we were supporting the key worker and some of the vulnerable children, but our numbers were quite low, and we were able to have staff in for one day every week to kind of limit their exposure and keep them protected. And then you contrast that to January, where we had 36% of the of children in school, and we had to think very differently. And it's just been an incredible journey. And I'm sure, Martin and Anita will feel the same, but the last year has really kind of shown you how brilliantly a community can pull together. And we certainly felt that because we had to navigate that fear of the unknown whilst knowing we had to kind of step up and help out. And in that, we had to look at how to support children at home. So devices was an issue. Getting vulnerable children in during the first lockdown was an issue, because parents were still quite unsure. So we had to check on our vulnerable children in different ways by doing lots of door visits, ringing up every couple of days, making sure that they were connected. Fortunately, fast forward to January lockdown, we had nearly all of our vulnerable children in, and those that weren't able to come in, we were able to provide devices too. Initially our own devices, but then eventually the government's devices turned up, which were really useful. We also had to think about how we delivered learning. In the first half of the pandemic, it was very much giving the parents our learning materials and getting that balance between putting the expectations that the children still need to learn, whilst also being quite sensitive to the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic and people were feeling a range of emotions. We felt that we really got that right in January, and we were kind of forced in a way, because we had so many pupils in, we didn't have the staff to separate like a group for home learning and a group for school learning. So we in the space of months, we went from Luddites to future people, where we were teaching our live lessons to the 10 children we'd have in school, whilst at the same time the 20 children in the class at home are watching the same lesson, and we were somehow teaching them all. And don't get me wrong, it had its challenges, and lots of us do miss the mute button, but it was absolutely fantastic, and it really kind of, in a strange way, it reminded the teachers how good they are as teachers, because the focus was on delivering that education. But then when the children came back, it reminded us how important relationships are, when we had to help reconnect the children back to school. Community was a really big focus for us in the first lockdown, because we had, nearly the whole school not in school, and it was a case of how do we ensure that we're still living and breathing Brickhill Primary, where most of the children aren't there. So we thought of different ways where we did like whole school topics, so that everyone was connected, and we did these assemblies which started off with me recording myself in the woods pretending I was in a forest, but eventually it evolved with children kind of sending in videos as well, and that's something that's carried on to the point where since we've come back after the most recent lockdown, the children now deliver the assemblies, where they record the assemblies with my help, and I've taken real ownership of that. And I think, if anything, it's shown us to be a bit more brave with what the children can do, because they became technology experts instantly. They were able to use many skills at the same time in a lesson, whilst they were sitting there, for several hours a day, having to look at a screen with no peers there, no break time where they get to outside and run around. And they really showed us just how awesome they are. In terms of us slowly trying to get back to normal, we've been focusing on our curriculum review, looking at what we offer as a curriculum. We started off with looking at writing, because that was our main focus, but it's quite exciting because each subject leader's on this kind of mission to sell their subject and really develop this knowledge-rich curriculum. We recently had a new Senko who has done wonders in our school, really helping improve our SEND provision, and particularly helping the teachers support children with special educational needs. In terms of changes to our site, we were very excited to get a new this patio area. Not as excited as the Year 6 pupils. It's their own private patio area. So when they get to kind of that middle point of Year 6 and they're too cool, they're just ready for secondary and they're too cool. They've got this lovely patio area, but it also doubles up as an area for outdoor drama and like singing. We're not really allowed to sing indoors still as part of the pandemic, so it was a singing space. And if you manage to catch BBC Look East, another plug, you see our patio as well. We recently had a Daily Mile track installed as part of the Sports Premium. If you've ever been to our site, our field isn't as large as other schools, and it's made of clay. So in the summer, after a few wet months, I assume all of Brickhill's made of clay, but it can be an interesting sports day. I think whoever's still standing tends to win, to be honest. But the Daily Mile track enables us to take the children out, and the plan is to take them out to run a mile each day, or as close to each day as we can, and Daily Mile's been going for quite a while, but after the last year, with rises in child weight gain, it's even more important now than ever before. And then also, one of the interesting things about us is we're going down to one form entry, so eventually we'll have one class in each year group. So what that offers us, it means each year we gain a classroom space. So I keep petitioning for like a disco room, but this year we went for an intervention room, because one of the things about primary, and I don't know how Anita feels about this, but when you plan for groups to go out in intervention, and you have to find any nook and cranny you can to get them the children support, and it enabled us to support children in their own quiet space with no distractions. In terms of our successes, I think round about just after the last one, it was 2019, wasn't it? Because we didn't have it last year. We won a sporting award for it's the best sporting school in Bedford, which sounds really grand, but it was to do with our participation in lots of different sporting events for the children. We competed in the Speech and Drama Festival, which we won our heat, which we're really proud of. My passion is speech and drama, and when I joined Brickhill, I introduced them to the Speech and Drama Festival, which is run at the Corn Exchange. I'm sure it must have been one of the last big events held before the pandemic closed it down. But I kind of introduced it to the school expecting to do okay. That's our first time, but the children did amazing. We won first place in every year group apart from one of the year groups, and we got about 24 out of 31 children came either first, second or third. And at the end of the festival, they picked 4 young poetry performers to perform at the gala out of the whole competition. And 2 of those 4 children were actually 2 of our pupils. The pandemic then hit, so we didn't carry on because it was different last year. The only frustrating thing about it is I was really saying, you know, I was downplaying it because I didn't want them to think we'd win lots and say, oh, we might not win anything this year, we'll get better each year. And now they're expecting me to do better each year. I think we'll have to just keep going for it. So that's kind of in a nutshell what the last year has been like at Brickhill Primary School. On a personal level, I worked over in the Kempston area before joining Brickhill, and I have to say, I think the community is fantastic. We like to go on a walk around the local community, visit local shops. We did that on like my second week in school, and we were welcomed into the florists, and they were just happy to talk to us. Father Wayne's been in. We visited the local church as well, and it's a really fantastic community. So although it's 2 years late, thank you for welcoming me to join. But that's Brickhill. So if there's any questions, please fire away.
Thanks, Dan. That's brilliant. And again, you know, coping with having to both do your job and cope with, you know, under the conditions you're having to work under. It's such a, you know, that's a mountain to climb, isn't it? So well done.
It is. But I have to say, yeah. I think it's one of those, it sounds really cliche, I suppose, but although the last year has been hugely tragic, it has brought us closer together, and it's quite, you know, it's been quite rewarding to see those relationships step up because we've had to trust each other so much. So there are some silver linings, I suppose.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, going to move on now, thank you, to Anita from Scott Primary. Hi, Anita.
Hi. Hello, everybody. Thank you ever so much for inviting me. It's great, as Dan says, to be here again. After all of the doom and the gloom of the year, I thought rather than me speaking very much this evening, I would just like to show you a little film. It's a very, very short film because I didn't want you to have to listen for too long, but just to show you how happy our children are to be back at school. I think the smiles on their faces sort of sum up how delighted they are to be back with their friends. Their parents have been amazing. The staff, as Dan and Martin have both said, have been absolutely fabulous. They have really stepped up to the mark and supported each other as well as all of our families. And I just thought there's no better way to show it really than to actually show you our children in action, to see them actually loving school. And I think they've sort of almost, that passion for school is back again. And I think the parents totally and utterly appreciate the fact that, you know, school is school and that the children have been as supported as well as they have been during lockdown. So Sue, are you ready to click the button? I promise it's very short.
You're on mute, Sue. Right. Still on mute, Sue.
I'm getting started. I was hoping I could access my, I've opened up my inbox. I was hopeful I could share it, but I'm not sure how to share that. Does anybody know?
Okay. Do you want me to? I think I might be
Can
able
you
to
do
share
it
it
from
from
yours?
here.
Yeah, yeah.
Shall we?
Yeah.
Right.
Let me
Make me the host, Sue.
Yeah,
If you go onto my name,
yeah, there you
the
go.
host.
Yeah.
Let's see if this will work. Okay.
You've
let's
probably
give
got it
a
on your
try.
system, whereas I was having to use my email, really. Okay. There you go.
Okay.
Oh, well done. Lost the sound.
Oh,
Oh,
right, the sound's gone. I'll just look at the pictures.
yeah.
These are our woolly mammoths. I don't know quite what happened to the sound there, but I think film, pictures, the children, and it will be the same in all three of our schools, that passion for being back at school, there is nothing quite like it. It's kind of reinvigorated us all. And as both Dan and Martin have said, it's actually really made us appreciate our school community, our wider community. You know, we truly are blessed to be back at school. And that's what we wanted to share really with you.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Anita. Took a lot of, that's a nice bit of artwork. Yes, I mean, some of those paintings were great.
Yeah, we do love our artwork.
And I wasn't sure a minute. I thought, was I watching the zombie apocalypse there, or was I watching? Yeah, then I'd think back to the woolly mammoths.
Absolutely, our creative response to the
No, it's good. It's good. It's really good. Thank you for that. Oh, fantastic. Okay, should we move on? Unless anyone's got any questions for Anita? And I should have said the same for Dan. My apologies if I didn't do that, Dan. But I mean, again, well done, Anita, and your team. It's you know, I work in IT. I can work anywhere, and for last year I've been in my little cave here. You know, so and you guys have been out there literally, you know, on the front line. You know, and yeah, so well done to you all. Okay, I've got
Mark, can I say that Howard isn't here?
Yeah.
So what I've done is I've asked for written things to come in, written reports.
Yeah, I have got that, Sue.
So rather than read them out, like Jack and Ori, I thought probably the sensible thing is we put them out as a collection, really, that people can read. Otherwise, we'd be sat here reading through people's written bits.
Well, I've put them into my presentation, Sue, but we can talk to the highlights of it. But I think if we move on now, should we move on to Father Wayne Coughlin from St. Philip and St. James?
Thank you. So thank you for the invitation to join you.
Yeah.
That's very kind. I'm afraid I have another meeting at 8 o'clock.
All right.
So that's fine. I'll do my bit, but then I'm afraid I do need to leave. So as other people have commented, it has been an extraordinary year, and it was really unsettling for an awful lot of parishioners and for myself to suddenly find ourselves locking churches. So up until the pandemic, St. Philip and James was opened for a huge chunk of every day. And so to suddenly go between the two churches that I have, one in Brickhill, one in Goldington, to visit empty churches day after day, week after week, month after month, was extraordinary. But in the midst of all that, the Catholic parish really, as many have said of their schools, really came to the fore, and huge amounts of projects were launched, which I want to talk about. But we are working incredibly hard to ensure that we remain COVID safe. So each of the two churches that I'm responsible for are bio-fogged once a month, which is every 30 days, according to the professional company that we have come in. So they come every month to bio-fog the entire building. There's obviously the compulsory wearing of masks, unless there's an exemption. The use of alcohol gel as people arrive, as people leave. We are really quite strict on social distancing. So there are regular announcements to ensure people do keep appropriate distance. We've had to reduce the capacity of our churches quite considerably. And obviously that has an impact upon potentially people turning up and being asked to leave. But we are very strict about the maximum we can hold, the social distancing that people have to adhere to. There's all the things that we see everywhere now in terms of signs and notices, encouragements not to touch things. We obviously run the NHS test and trace. We collect all that data according to GDPR. So we display the NHS app, the code, the QR code that people can sign in. We also have a paper copy. So we are taking it really very seriously. And I would say the vast majority of people have cooperated with that. It was obviously hard for one or two people to be suddenly signing in to come into church. Also to find that benches had been marked off, that parts of the church were no longer being used, to not being able to sit where they had for, in some cases, decades. So it was quite a cultural shift. So the first sort of impact was the fact that no one could come to Mass anymore. And then when people did return, to suddenly find that actually it wasn't like it was before. And so we did try to work with people to say that, you know, coming back, we're not coming back to normal. It's very different. So as was mentioned in school, that there's no singing. So there's organ music and there's instrumental music, but a big part of the Sunday Mass was singing. So obviously that's not part of it anymore. Sharing the sign of peace, so, you know, physically shaking hands, that's not anymore. The clergy physically greeting people outside of church, that doesn't happen. So we stand very considerably away from each other and greet each other. But so it's quite unnerving for some people, because the church was the place where people found solace and comfort and community, as people have said of schools, and suddenly it's quite different now. So people are glad to be back, but the comments are that it doesn't feel the same as it was before. And we do legally have to have 2 stewards present at every Mass, every act of worship, who maintain all those things of social distancing, using alcohol gel, operating test and trace scheme. So it's quite a huge task that the parish has. So we have about 27, 30 volunteers who we draw on, but you know, there's Mass every day, twice on a Saturday, twice on a Sunday. So we quickly go through all those volunteers in a week. So I want to applaud what the community in Brickhill and my other part in Goldington are doing. But I do sense that people are now tired of all the regulations and the tape and the marks and the alcohol gel and the signs. But we're keeping to all that. So in the midst of all that, very, very quickly, within hours of the lockdown being announced, virtually everything that we did went online. And the SVP, the St Vincent de Paul Society, launched a food bank. And the numbers of people they help each week is extraordinary. Taking food parcels, helping people to move, finding furniture, collecting medication. So it's extraordinary what the work they're doing. So I have 2 colleagues, 2 deacons. We also employ a full-time Catholic youth minister, a lady called Stephanie. We have 2 parish secretaries who we didn't furlough. We have vast numbers of volunteers. So it's in the midst of all the difficulty and the uncertainty and how unsettling it all is. Suddenly, as we said of the schools, we discovered a new way of being the church, a new way of helping the community. So there was just literally almost overnight, everything went online. We tried to live stream. Meetings take place over Zoom. But again, I sense the initial enthusiasm for still meeting and still gathering. There's Zoom fatigue now. and I think people are very much looking forward to getting physically back. So it's almost a tale of 2 parts, really. There was all the suddenly everything stopping, churches being locked, how unsettled people were, and then in the midst of that, people responding to needs of the local community. As I say, taking out huge numbers of food parcels, providing collecting medication for people. When it was possible, having sort of socially distanced doorstep chats. We launched a telephone service where parishioners were phoning, and still are, hundreds of people every week just to maintain contact. So I'm really proud of how the Catholic community has sort of risen to the challenge. I think we're like all of society, and I think we're all a bit tired now. But it's been and in the midst of all that, of course, was the large number of deaths. So a huge number of funerals that the parish has had. And obviously associated with that was all with the grief. Yeah. So it's been a really tough year, but in the midst of all that, huge amounts happened. Lots of positive initiatives. So it's how we sort of continue that, but in a new way when things return to some sort of normality. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Father. It is going to take time to adjust to whatever the new normal is. Absolutely. So, and it's really interesting to hear what you're saying about all your volunteers, all that support being given to the community. So,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming along this evening. And I'm sorry you can't stay to the end.
Well, thank you once again for the invitation. It's very kind of you.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, I'm going to move on. We have a report from Girl Guiding, but again, it's in written format. So I'm going to move on to the Borough Council representing Brickhill. And I can see...
Wait. There are some other groups here, Mark.
Oh, are there? Oh, well, Barry's online now. We see Barry's face. Yep. All right, okay. Good point. So, Barry, good evening. Good to see you. You mentioned...
Good evening, Mark. We can now see, I've been able to see everybody before, I hadn't pressed the little button.
Now, you mentioned about your obviously your campaigns to keep looking after the footpaths around Brickhill, and I know you've done your evening walks in the summer, which I guess didn't happen. Did that happen last year?
Yes, yes. In fact, during the summer, we were rather fortunate because we could take. It was sort of between lockdowns, and we could take up to 10 people. And in fact, we had almost the same 10 people week after week after week. But we always start with going up and watching the sunset. That's the norm. That's when we normally start. And we take people up and stand and watch the sunset.
Midsummer's Day. Was that on Midsummer?
On Midsummer's Evening, yes.
Yeah.
And so, with fingers crossed, we will start them again this year, and then we will run them every week until probably the end of August. And they're just 2 hours duration, and it's surprising, but it will be the number of people that we've had in the past. And you take them into places in Bedford and they still say, oh, never been here, but we've lived in Bedford for so long. I'm just wondering whether that will happen this year because we've had so many people out. Because of lockdown and people wanting something to do, they've been coming out. Now, we're very fortunate, as you know, Mark, because we've got plenty of open spaces. We've also got plenty of tolerant landowners who have allowed people to walk on non-public paths. But some of those landlords have, in fact, been abused at times, which is a great pity, because in fairness, if you've never been out in the countryside before and you suddenly start coming out, you don't know where to walk. And so you start wandering. But they do draw the line when people sort of go off. And I was talking to one landlord, not in Brickhill, but not too far away, who said, I drew the line when people camped on my garden, went down, sat, had a picnic. And when I went out to remonstrate with them, told me that they didn't know what I was talking about and this was public land. And he said, had I thought they were actually walkers, he said, I would have really blown up. But he said, I realised they weren't. And so what we have to realise now is that now we're out of lockdown, that places like walking all over the golf course is a non-event because the golfers will be playing golf. And also, they should stick to public paths. A lot of the public paths on the fields, farmers have got crops. It's their livelihood. So please stick to the paths. The other thing that we've seen is also, and which is horrendous, is this growth of what I call dog poo. People either let the dogs poo and don't do anything about it, or they let the dogs poo, pick it up, put it in a bag, and then hang it on a tree or hang it on a gate, which is even worse. And it's almost an attitude of, look, it's not mine, I'll get rid of it. And yet the council do provide bins. So those are sort of little moans, if you like, that call. But I wander around and in fact, Natural England have just reprinted the countryside code, and is well worth looking at because they've simplified it, and I'm going to say make it an idiot's guide for anybody who wants to go in the country, and so that's absolutely great. And yes, if there's any questions on what we do and what I do and how the council performs on rights of way, I'm quite happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Barry. Anyone got any questions for Barry?
Yeah, I've got one. It's going to be a little bit contentious, but it's obviously going to be mentioned at some point. Because Barry, you're doing the countryside, doing the footpaths and that go off to the countryside. Myself and my wife walk through there, and we've seen where this new rail route is going through, which is going to spoil some of that area. So, you know, we wonder what your view on that is, and what representations you've made, and the obvious question would also be to the councillors who supported having the rail route come through North Brickhill. I wonder why they've done that.
Well, I'm not going to get into the into the discussion on why the railway is going to be where it's going to be, apart from the fact that my own view, and this was when the railway was coming, when they announced it, the only route possible would be north of Bedford. But I was expecting them to go much further north than, in fact, the two options that they've given us. Now, I'm not going to go further. That's my view. That's my view. But we were discussing this at the local access forum last night about making a local access forum response. We know that they've got two options at the moment, an in one and an out one. Both of them cover lots of footpaths, and we should be putting forward in two routes. One, proposals to say you should be able to do this, but you can't do that. And then the other proposals will be specifically on the paths themselves, whether they should be merged, how can they be merged, or in fact, do they need bridges, do they need this and need the other. But it's one of these things which is, until we know, it's all right saying, well, you know, we can have a go about this and have a go about that. One way or the other, I think it's going to come, but it may be a number of years off, and it's up to us to try and get the best possible deal for footpaths and bridleways and multi-user paths.
Can I pick this point up a bit later on, if that's okay, Simon and Barry, because it is relevant to some stuff that we in the Parish Council have been doing. So
yeah, fine.
We do recognise this point absolutely, about the access to the countryside. And as Barry said, so many more people have been walking out there in the country this year compared to normal. You know, it used to amaze me. You can go out beyond Hawk Drive and you would see virtually nobody. You know, you get the regular dog walkers, but beyond that, very few. But now you're getting many more people, I think, over the past year been using those paths. So we can highlight that point a bit later on, if that's okay. So Sue, which other groups, who have I missed? My apologies.
I could see Cheryl with her hand up. I don't know if she wanted to talk about laughter yoga, or is that not happening now?
Well, no,
you don't need to demonstrate.
I could talk
just
laughter yoga. I could. No, I'm not. Laughter yoga's been on Zoom for over a year because, like singing, you can't do it face to face. Sue knows, and I do which I didn't do last year, won't be this year, my free session on the green every year. And actually, I've had my hand up for a little while, actually. Thank you, Sue, for noticing. And can I just go back to the comment, to the presentations from the schools, just briefly?
Sure.
Just to comment, because I did put my hand up. I think that it was brilliant to hear what was going on in the school and how you've adapted. And I'm sure there are good lessons learned from what happened over the last year that can be continued in the school. And as I live very close to Brickhill Lower, and I was just going to say, I drove past her the other day and how impressed I was with the parents waiting outside, all wearing masks. And I do miss seeing the children walk into the swimming pool. And for the neighbours, it was great joy to see the little ones walking down with the teachers. Yeah, you know. So I wanted to say well done. And I think you've got the end with the little children some of them wouldn't understand what's been going on really, because they're very small and they've been quite frightening. And whereas Martin's got the yeah, well, we're all right because we're young. And do you know what I mean? How, and all our life is, the world has ended because we haven't got a social life. And I wanted to say thank you for sharing that. That was all.
Yeah,
that was my comment of those presentations.
Thank you, Cheryl. That's brilliant. Okay, Sue, have I missed anyone else?
Yeah. The only other person I can see is Dave. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave.
I'm the chair of the Friends of Putney Wood and Mosbury Hillfort, and obviously this year's been quite challenging for the group to operate. We've had to comply with all the usual rules, but fortunately most of our activities happened in between lockdown periods, so we're quite lucky really from that perspective. We were able to conduct our major tasks such as coppicing in the Putney Wood, which has sort of opened up the areas and revealed lots of wildflowers. So I hope people are appreciating the wildflowers in the wood at the moment. In terms of the Hillfort, we were able to get the grass cut and so that the wildflowers can come through again this year, and they're just starting to show themselves. So I hope people will enjoy the wildflowers across the Hillfort as well. So although it's been challenging, we've kept on top of the litter, which obviously has been quite a greater problem for us this year because of more people being out and about. A little bit of problem with extra bonfires and partying, but in general, people will have pretty well respected the Hillfort site, so we're very happy for that. So challenging, but we've kept going, and we still will carry on looking after the sites for the benefit of the community.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. And again, as it is on the edge of the town, I guess, you know, a lot more footfall than normal.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, great stuff. So I'm going to move on now, if I may. I'll tell you what, can we do the borough councillors next, and then we'll pick up all the other reports and as part of my last report, if that's okay. And so Charlie and Wendy.
Yeah, can you hear me all right, Mark?
I certainly can. Yeah.
I mean, looking back over the past year, I think it's been extraordinary in many different ways. I think it's remarkable how people have worked together in the community in Brickhill. Some of the things that we've seen have been quite inspirational. Wendy and I have not been able to have our normal surgeries, our leaflets. We couldn't give out any communication in that way, so we've had to change the way in which we've communicated, and found that the community have really helped us in that. I mean, the community hub that was set up had loads and loads of volunteers coming forward to help to meet the needs. In fact, at one stage we had more volunteers than we had people who had needs. That's how much people have stepped up to try and help. And the council has delivered services, essential services throughout the whole of the past year. Council staff have really been brilliant. They've worked at home with COVID. They've tried to get back to work as quickly as they possibly could after COVID. So that we've been able to keep on delivering services like just the simple stuff that you expect, like emptying bins and things, which is not easy when staff are going off ill, and at certain times it's been a real struggle, but they've carried on doing that. Yeah, I absolutely want to pay tribute to schools. One thing I would mention is just the preschools, especially because they've continued throughout the whole of the crisis, and they had no break. And they continue delivering services to children of key workers and vulnerable children. And I know at St. Mark's we had staff going right the way through the pandemic. And of course, they also resumed the full service to all the children much earlier. So that the preschools have worked really, 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 really well. One of the things we found is that there's been a big problem keeping on top of the bottle banks because everyone's drinking a lot more. And thankfully, they're taking the bottles back to the bottle bank. So that's good. Simon asked a question about the railway. I mean, obviously that is a big issue. As far as Wendy and I are concerned, it's a government project between Cambridge and Oxford. And I believe that even most of the people who are opposed to Route E still believe that it's important that Bedford isn't missed out on this railway line. We share the view that the railway will bring increased prosperity and opportunity for Bedford. It would be extremely damaging for Bedford if if Bedford was bypassed. People will be able to commute to work from Bedford to two of the most important scientific developments in the world, at Oxford and Cambridge. They'll be able to take a train from Bedford right to Adam Brooks Hospital, from Bedford Hospital from a new station, or take a family day out in Oxford, as well as encouraging businesses to come and locate here in Bedford. The railway it will inevitably bring major investment to Bedford with the building of a new modern railway station at Bedford. It'll be a railway hub. It'll secure the intercity trains to London, which are vital for people in Brickhill, and we have lots of people in Brickhill who commute. The only corridors which East West Rail have considered, which use Bedford Station, were two northern routes. So we're scuppered, you know, that's what they've offered. No other routes. And if another route was used, there would be considerable impact upon the environment. For example, an East West Rail had written to us making the point that trains going on a southern route via the old track bed would have needed to go through Priory Country Park. And of course, further down the line, you've got the problems with the RSPB at Sandy. So there's all kinds of issues, and people have asked us questions about costs and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not a railway engineer, so I don't know which one's going to cost the most, and people would have to look at the documentation which is on the East West Rail website. But my own opinion is the government will spend whatever the government wants to spend on this, and it's not something which is being delivered locally. So I didn't want to dodge that question from you, Simon, and I hope I've just put my views on the table as honestly as I possibly can. And it'd be much easier for me to be dishonest with you and say I wanted to come to Bedford Railway Station, but I not give you the route of how it's going to get out to there. But there we go.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Charlie. Shall I move on now? Because I'm conscious of the time. It's 8:10, and I think we were advertising it as a 8:30 finish. So I'm going to have to try and canter through these through this next part if I can, and I've got to try and work out how to share my screen properly on.
Let me make these go.
Please. Right. Okay, can I share now, Sue?
Well, I've invited you, yeah. I've invited you
fantastic.
to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. So hopefully I'll do it on here. I may not be able to see what's going on when I'm in the middle of sharing, but I shall endeavour to. So I'm going to rattle through. Normally, the intention would be to have some sort of proper written report, but as we're meeting online, I thought I'll try. I can't match Anita's video, unfortunately, or even the other stuff from Thomas Moore. So I've just got a few photographs and very few words. So this, as I say, is our Annual Parish Meeting. I've included here the reports from the other groups. We've had the report from Friends of Parkwood, and really similar to this is from Tony Gill, the main coordinator, and essentially the same situation as with Mosbury Hill Fort and Putney Wood. They have a lot more people going into the reserve. They have been continuing to maintain the orchard, continuing to look after the wildflower areas, etc. And with support from the Borough Council and community payback, which is really good. They've had problems with vandalism, with litter. Only recently, the lovely wooden bench with the carved, I think it's a fox or dog, I'm not sure if it's a dog or fox, to be honest, has had its nose cut off twice, which is a great shame for people just to do that. And as they're saying in here, showing in here, a couple of trees have been cut down for no reason at all. It's just crazy. But it is a lovely place to go, and again, it's a very most people don't know it's there. It's really great to just wander around. You can go from there, go across towards Clapham Park, and it's a nice little place to have on our doorstep. So this is from Rainbows, Brownies, Guides and Rangers. And again, we've got a little report here. So they've been moving to Zoom, and it's great to see they're able to continue. I'm not sure what the situation is with the Scouts in Brickhill. We haven't had a report from them this time, but it'll be really interesting to see how they get back up to speed. I'm involved to a degree with St Andrews Scouts, and they've not been meeting at all. And I think any of these youth groups, you know, kids grow up so quickly. Not meeting for a year or year and a bit, it's going to be really difficult for them to get back up to speed again. So again, I just want to thank anyone who's involved in guiding and in scouting for, you know, volunteering to help the younger members of the community. It's great. Bedford Park Rangers from Howard. So one of the things we've been very happy to do over the years is, and this was with Brickhill Lower School, the football club, which was sort of associated with the school, was to support the playing of football on Waveney Green. And unfortunately, we've seen that diminish, and I think, I'm not sure officially there's any games that they're playing now, Sue. I don't know if you have the current situation. You're still on mute. Still on mute, Sue.
Now you can hear me, can't you? I couldn't see for the bits and pieces. You're quite right, yeah. I mean, this year there is still football going on, just Howard's group, which is the under 10s, yeah. But as you can see from the report, that will end shortly. I mean, it is a shame that we haven't got youth football teams, because Waveney Green is a perfect place to play, and we, of course, never charge for it. We do just mark it, and yes, it costs money. £1,000 a year to mark the pitches, and obviously we get the grass cut, but you know, that's how it is really. But I mean, I don't know whether any of the schools have any ideas about plans for football teams or whatever that we could then mark the pitch out that they could use. It's probably more likely Brickhill Primary, because they're the nearest, aren't they, to it, and have perhaps less facilities than perhaps I think probably Scott have in terms of outdoor space. But you know, if they haven't any ideas and they want to do something, by all means come to us and we can think about marking it out, can't we?
Yep, absolutely. So Dan, that's the thing, to please take that thought with you. Okay, so moving on. More stuff there again from Howard. We'll share that all later. So this is now my report for the Parish Council. As with everyone else, we've been affected by COVID-19. We've moved to, as I said, we've moved to virtual meetings. Our office has been closed. We've done no newsletters throughout the year. We've not had any public events, and we were due to be working on the neighbourhood development plan to try and give a shape for the future of Brickhill, and that's had to be paused during the because of COVID. It has meant we have been able to try and focus on some other things, which I'll come on to in a minute. But this is just to sort of formally mention, everything we do costs money, essentially. And so every year we have to set a budget. And for the year in question, our budget was £122,000, or the precept was £122,500, which is a bandy equivalent for £34.52. So we try and keep it fairly constant, and we try and obviously do what we can to achieve the best value out of that, the money we are taking from people in the community. So looking through what we've got, one of our main roles is running the allotments at the top of Brickhill Drive. And as we're saying here, they've been more popular than ever. We have got some plots vacant, but that's going to be sorting out very soon now. We're just going through a massive exercise of changing the keys, which Sue's got to look forward to. We have a very long waiting list. We do prioritise residents of Brickhill Parish for that. So unfortunately, it does mean that people who are not resident of Brickhill are, at the moment, can be very unlikely to get to be allocated a plot. It does cost money for the Parish Council to run this. It's not a profit-making exercise at all. Though we keep trying to find ways of making it run more smoothly and more cheaply, it's still basically it's a cost to the wider community. So we have a bit of a debate about that every year, about how much should we be charging in rents, and what can we do to try and make it operate more financially neutral, but we're some way off from that, unfortunately. That's the allotments. It's a lovely place, and beyond that is the Parkwood Nature Reserve behind the allotments, and the community orchard. So other things. I'm just going to move the picture. I'll minimize that. Sorry, Sue. Some of the things I'm showing here are actually happening now, so they're technically outside of the year in question, but they're all things which we've been talking about in the past year. We'd previously agreed to contribute towards this new parking bay in Brickhill, in Rooksmead, where there's a very heavily congested road with limited parking for residents, too many cars for too few places. So we're very happy as a parish council to, I think it's £10,000 we've offered to contribute towards that. And I think the borough councillors, Wendy and Charlie, are making up the rest of it from their ward fund. But so work is happening, as you see. It's getting, it's looking quite good now. They've got this foundation layer going in, and hopefully we coming on and finished fairly soon. Average speed cameras. Again, this is a long-running issue. We've agreed some time ago to fund average speed cameras, or to contribute towards average speed cameras in Brickhill Drive. It's a road which has suffered from speeding, and there's due to be a system put in there of 3 cameras, which again we're making a contribution to, and the borough councils are as well. It has proved very effective at reducing speeds elsewhere in the borough. Motor walk play area, we have now officially taken that over from the borough council, and we have plans which are very well progressed now, advanced, to upgrade and replace some of the equipment in there. So work should be on that, done in there within the next, I would hope in the next month or two. Maybe a month is a bit optimistic, but I'm certainly hoping before the summer. Sue, I don't know if you want to add anything to that about the play area.
Yeah, so looking at the picture, you can see what we're doing is at the far side, we're going to replace what are called the junior swings, which are looking a little bit sad. We're going to replace those with some new swings, and one of those sort of nest things that children sit in and swing. So that's been done. The net, which is sort of in the middle, you can just about see the red pole, that's breaking away. That's coming out, and we're putting in something called a hip hop, which is a sort of, looks a bit like a sort of arch seesaw, but it spins round and goes up and down. That's going in there, and effectively from where you're looking, as if you're where you're standing looking at that picture, there are some baby swings, cradle swings. They're again looking a bit sad, so they're coming out with some new ones going in. And then the bark areas under those 3 bits of equipment are being replaced with rubber mulch, and parts of the area are being grassed over because really they're just too big. I mean, in total, we're spending, well, about 25, 26, maybe a bit more, 1,000 on that. Play equipment is expensive, it's not cheap. So we're at the stage, we've got the pieces of equipment there with the installers, and so we're just waiting for a date for that to be done. And there's a new gate got to go in. You can see a gate at the far end, but the one at this end is broken. And there you can see at the very far end, a yellow sort of semicircle at the far end. That's the signage. New signage is going in, the artwork's accepted, so that will be going in. So that's all being done, and it's maybe, I don't know if you're going to go on to Waveney Green, but it's worth pointing out, yes, a lot of money was spent last year on Waveney Green, putting new equipment there as well. So yeah, it's a progress. We're making.
Thank you, Sue. Yeah. So Waveney Green, as you mentioned, we replaced some of the old equipment there last year, and Dan, thank you for the feedback. You know, it's a lovely area. You know, when we took this over from the Borough Council and we talked about what can we do in there, there was opposition actually from some people to putting stuff into the green, these like play equipment. So I am pleased that, you know, it seems to have gone well. The original equipment that went in was perhaps not quite the best quality that we could get, but it was at the time, some of it was free, so we got it. But it is, as you say, it's proven very popular, not just with the kids from Brickhill Primary, but also, you know, from the wider community as well. And to the left, we have got the green gym equipment as well, which I think is a bit underused, to be honest. I'm a bit surprised it's not more used than it is. But I think this year we've got plans afoot to replace some of the, repair some more of the tarmac on the paths around the green. So it's an ongoing responsibility for us. It does cost money, again, obviously, to cut the grass, to mark out pitches, to keep the equipment all safe and you know, in a good shape. What I haven't got is, I haven't also mentioned, we've got overall responsibility for the Brickhill Community Centre. Though it's run on our behalf by the Brickhill Community Association, again, we are the, if you like, the landlord of that building, if I can, and we have a lease for it from the Borough Council, and we are, you know, we have put considerable money into maintaining that and improving it over the last few years. So these are some of the key things we are, we have responsibility for. This is just moving break, it's just some other random stuff. This is just the standard thing we include just to show all our councillors who's been attending, who's not been attending at different meetings. Over that year in question, we've had some changes. We've had a couple of councillors have stepped down. We've got new councillors appointed. So we've been joined by, from the top, we've been joined by Paula Brazier, by Sudesh Rani, and on the other hand, we've seen that Tim Ratu had to unfortunately step down. So these are the people who were councillors during the year in question. And I'm going to just briefly move on to East West Rail, because Simon mentioned it earlier. I mean, just one point is we basically, as a parish council, we have advised, we try to alert people about East West Rail at various points, both during the original consultation in 2019 and again later on at various points during the when the announcements were made about the preferred route. So, and we did agree, we had discussions in the parish council back in February and March 2019, and councillors went to various meetings, both arranged by East West Rail and also, I think there was at least one other meeting by the Bedfordshire Association Town and Parish Council. So we've been, fairly well informed. The council made a decision to support a northern route out of Bedford, i.e. routes D or E. Earlier this year, I was actually quite surprised by the what appeared to me to be a sort of a very large public response a year after the announcement of the route. I couldn't really work out why a year after the announcement back in February, March 2020, suddenly a year later we had a lot of people arriving and if you like, commenting on the whole issue. But irrespective of my surprise, we've had further discussions. The parish council has agreed to rescind our support for the northern route, and now in the process of we've agreed to support other parish councils who are basically looking for reconsultation of the whole thing. We have not yet made a submission, and obviously it's getting beyond the year in question, but let's mention it anyway. We have not yet agreed a formal submission. We've not yet formally agreed how we're going to consult with our residents about the current proposals. But I know various parish councils are involved in ongoing conversations around this. We had a meeting yesterday with the Mayor, with Councillor Michael Headley, and with John Shortland, who's a senior officer from the Borough Council. So that was yesterday evening. And we were asked, the Mayor and Councillor Headley and John Shortland are meeting with parishes across the two route options, alignment options. And they're asking for our input to advise them in their decision-making process. So we had a pre-meeting 2 days ago as the parish council, the first councillors who came along, and we put together a set of slides or a set of comments, which we then went through yesterday. And one of the things that we did highlight on was the question of footpaths. And if I can just share this one slide only, if that's okay, from the pack we went through with the Mayor, with Councillor Headley and John Shortland yesterday. It may be a bit hard to read, but basically this is a picture from East West Rail superimposed over the Borough Council's OS map showing the public rights of way. And the key thing is you've got the orange route down the bottom, which I think is Route 9, and you've got the purple one at the top, which is Route 1. Coming out from the urban area, we have got a series of public footpaths, which are the pink colours, which you can just see going up grades towards Grace Hill, two of them there, others going off towards Clapham, the golf course, etc. We have got a couple of public bridleways, one of which leads up towards Twinwoods, one of which goes up to Grace Hill by Highfield Farm. There's another bridleway over here, which basically doesn't go anywhere, unfortunately. It doesn't connect to the one bridleways through the golf club. So we've highlighted the point that whatever route is actually eventually built, we want to preserve public access to the countryside beyond Brickhill. All this area, by the way, is in Brickhill Parish, just to make it clear. If I can, sorry, this is our parish boundary going north of Brickhill. So this is very much in our area of interest. But basically, we want to see access to the countryside preserved. We would still love to see a cycle route between Brickhill and Clapham along the old Bumpy Lane, Hawk Drive, Carriage Drive area, but the challenge is the owners of Clapham Park were against it, and it's a privately owned road. We'd love to see that happen. And obviously, when in respect to the actual route itself, we want to see measures taken to minimise disruption, both during construction and to minimise impact on the community during operation. That's like from a noise point of view, from a pollution point of view, and from a vibration point of view. So the all aspects essentially of the routes. So that's what we've been doing just now, and I'm sure we'll be doing more on that as the whole process continues. This is going to be it's a long drawn out process, this whole stage process that East West Rail are going through. I think that's the end of my slides. So I'm going to stop presenting. And we got 1 minute. Dear idea. I'm really sorry. Does anyone have any, especially members of the public, want to chip in with anything?
Yeah, just very quickly. Mr. Royder mentioned earlier on there's only 2 routes, but the information that you put up on your slide mentioned that there was 5 routes. So I just want to understand why in Mr. Royder's view only 2, but in what you're putting out there's actually 5.
No, in my slide, the one I shared, the slide there.
One of the ones I saw, it said that there was 5 routes. I mean, you know, looking at the consultation documents, there was more than 2 routes always.
Yeah. So just to reiterate, I mean, yeah. So the East West Rail came out with 5 routes initially, 5 route corridors, whatever they were called, A, B, C, D, and E. D and E were north of Bedford. A, B, C was south of Bedford. When they came out again earlier this year with their next stage of the process, they whittled that down to, obviously they chose route E back in early last year, and now they've come out with, within that route E corridor, they actually came out with 10 different routes. From a Brickhill point of view, there's only really they've eliminated 5 of those and brought it down to 5 within the 10, if that makes sense. But from a Brickhill point of view, there's only 2, because essentially they all start off the same. They will come out of Brickhill from Bedford Midland Railway Station, and then they split. And then you've got several routes sharing either the purple or the orange. So, you know, from our local point of view, there's sort of 2 route alignments which they're suggesting. One that's close in towards Woodlands Park, one that's a little bit further away. And I have to say, and this is where I declare an interest on this, because I work, I don't work for East West Rail, but I do work in the railways. So I'm not making any, I'm not voting on anything that relates to choices of routes, but my comment is, my understanding from what I've heard other colleagues mentioning is that the route nearest to Woodlands Park would be much more obtrusive, not just because it's nearer, but because it basically would be higher in order to get over Grace Hill. The route that goes north, further north from Woodlands Park, the purple route, much of it is actually in a cutting. So from a noise point of view, would be from a residence in anywhere in all properties in Brickhill bar 1 would be, I would expect to be much better off than the more southern of the 2 routes. Hope that makes sense.
Can I just interrupt before you go much further? 2 things. One, Paula wants to ask a question, but don't forget Peter's report. Peter Blake.
I'm really sorry, Sue.
You should do Peter before you go into any extra time, otherwise you're going to run out of Peter's report, aren't you?
I'm sorry, I'm not reading my agenda.
No, so
normally you can nudge me, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. My apologies, Peter. I'm really sorry. And you're on mute.
Okay. We've not used virtual meetings because planning applications generally have numerous documents which would be very difficult to show on a Zoom meeting. So we've had each individual councillor look at the documents on their website. They've given their responses to me, I've collated them all together, and then Stu has then passed them on to the Borough Council Planning Department. Each application, just to give people a flavour of what we do, each application we look not just at what it might impinge on the neighbour, but also on the wider area of Brickhill. And we follow the guidelines which have been put out by the borough, and these are basically to look at the basic scale and shape, the detailed character, space around the building, car parking provision, privacy, daylight, sunlight, overbearing, safety, and impact on any new buildings or land use. What a lot of people don't realise is that planning matters are not a valid reason for not having a view or impact on property values or construction concerns. These are outside the planning system, although usually you do have conditions for construction people to follow. And it should also be remembered that the final approval or rejection of any planning application is doesn't rest with the parish council, but it rests with the planning committee or the officers at the borough council. The year of COVID-19 has not diminished the number of applications. We had 59, which we considered over the last year. We made comments on 21 and objected to 3 of them. The borough examined the 35, 14 are still outstanding, 9 were rejected by the borough, 3 of which we had adversely commented on. In more detail, 45 of the 59 were the usual extensions to private houses, 30 were approved, 4 rejected, 1 withdrawn, and 10 still outstanding. We had 6 applications concerning new dwellings. 2 of them were repeats due to rejections in the first application. So we've now got the site of the old electricity pylon in Falcon Avenue, which they're building a detached house on. We've got 2 replacement dwellings in Bolton Road near Nursery Gardens, and another one for 2 dwellings to replace the old redundant garages behind Ruxmead. Possibly the major concern of most people in Brickhill is the application for a 200 dwelling development on the raised hill site. This was allowed under policy 24 of the local plan and was discussed a year earlier by the parish council and was rejected by us due to the proposed level of housing. The application had some modified plans put in to the borough for 165 dwellings and an extension to the country park, and this was approved in November 9, 2019. During the last year, we've had this reserved matters access road application. The access road from Grey Hill, as you would be aware, is extremely steep and has a very, very high gradient. So they put in an application for a U-shaped insert encroaching, unfortunately, into the country park to try and alleviate this high slope. And this involves steep sides and additional lighting which could give pollution, and our response has been to request to have it mitigated as much as possible. The outcome is still outstanding, although you appreciate that if you go up to Grave Hill, Bleak Hill, they are already starting doing some chop all the hedges down where the old road along Bleak Hill is going to be a T-junction with the new entrance road, and they're already doing some earth moving in that area. We've had 2 planning applications for pre-surgery work, both on Tim Bolton Road. One has been permitted, one is still outstanding. We've had 3 for changes of use, 1 for a residential going to a care home, which was rejected, and 2 for land to garden use. 1 was rejected off Westbrook Way, and 1 is outstanding in Hamble Drive. Miscellaneous, we've had 2, 1 for a garden shed summer house, which is still outstanding, and 1 for air conditioning units, which we rejected due to the potential noise from them, and the outcome is still outstanding. So that's the quick brief report for the last year.
Thank you very much, Peter. Any questions for Peter? Just to reiterate, as a parish council, we can comment on planning applications, but we can't actually decide them ourselves, either approval or reject. We do try and comment on those. Okay, so I'm really conscious that time is passing, so I'm really sorry. Sue, did you say who wants to speak?
No, Paula had her hand up, but it's not to speak. She wanted to send a message to somebody else, so that was fine.
No, it was to speak.
Oh, okay. I thought, right, okay.
Yes. I sorry, I was on another call. I thought it was quite fortuitous having the head teacher from Scott Primary and obviously Martin from St Thomas More earlier. When you shared the slides earlier, Mark, I just wonder how clear it was to both those head teachers, and actually I think Martin might have gone at that point, about what we were saying about the compound and accessing via Hawk Drive potentially, because I wonder if that was a fortuitous opportunity to just share that with Anita, teachers on the call. She might not be aware.
Okay, yes, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Paula. So Anita, yes, Martin had to drop off unfortunately, but we have commented on the fact that we do not see Hawk Drive as being a valid access point to the building, for any building that goes on that railway track. Hawk Drive is totally unsuitable. So we're happy for it to be pedestrians, happy for cyclists, great to see that, but access for construction traffic, no. So we just made the point to the mayor. Obviously, we can say that as parish council in our own submission to East West Rail, and I think our basic recommendation to anybody is to individually send in comments, but also as an organisation, as a school, please do send in your comments as well. What is not clear about this whole process is how much weight they put on any individual person's comments or individual organisation's comments. I think there's we had a bit of a suspicion that when the last consultation took place, that we as a parish council, our views are actually probably not, the top of the heap, and maybe regarded as just as any other individual. So probably in this sort of case, the more different people who are putting their comments in about that type of thing, the better.
Okay. For bringing up that point, because I wasn't aware of that. Thank you, Mark, your feedback. We will make sure that we do certainly lobby to make sure that as many people as possible respond to that, because as it is, because it's a narrow road, we already have terrible trouble with traffic down Hawk Drive. So to add to it would just be, well, it would actually be dangerous.
Sure. What I'll do, Anita, I'll forward on to you the notes that we shared with the Mayor yesterday, if that's okay.
Brilliant.
You'll see them anyway. Right.
That's great. I really appreciate that. And thank you, Pauline, for that.
Peter wants to come in.
Yeah, can I just make the point that they can't use the authorised extension because it's not a valid road. There's no road past Little Park Farm.
No.
No, but if they, you know, the construction industry will come up with clever ways of trying to achieve their objectives. And they might say, we're going to, you know, they want to use it. And given the clout they've got, you never know what might happen. So in this case, what I'd really strongly recommend is don't make assumptions that it won't happen.
Right.
Yeah. So just do put your comments in, because otherwise you never know.
No.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else got anything else to raise?
Just on a point, Mark. The consultation ends on the 9th of June.
Yeah.
So people need to put their comments in before the 9th of June.
Exactly. There are these online meetings. You know, you can dial into online meetings for they've got different types of meetings going on. You can take part in these weekly virtual consultation sessions they're running as well. There's a lot of stuff out there, and actually there's a lot of documentation as well. So it's quite hard work wading through it all. If people hopefully would have received the mailing that East Wales sent out.
Yeah.
If you want paper copies of the more substantial documents, you can order them and they are free. Okay. If there's nothing else from anyone, I just want to, I'm not sure who Lenovo is down the bottom. Joined at some point, but just want to say thank you very much indeed for attending, everybody, this evening. It's really great, especially the schools. It's great to hear the father as well. So great to see the members of the public. Hopefully this time next year we'll be able to safely meet face to face, and we normally would try and provide tea and coffee and biscuits. More sociable, easier to communicate and all that sort of thing. But in the meantime, we actually, and actually just a very brief final point, our legal ability to meet remotely is ending in May, and we're then faced with having to meet face to face. And despite the fact that there are many people out there who are not yet vaccinated. So, you know, there are still risks out there. We have to see what we can do to operate in a safe way, in the same way that the schools and other organisations are operating safely. But it's another little challenge that we'll have to bear with. Okay, so if there's nothing else, I'll just again thank you very much indeed for attending, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, take care, everyone.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.